Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. With that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Shall we? All right, everybody. Today I have a subscriber with us. His name is Jack. Jack, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeff.
Thanks for taking some time out of your day. I appreciate it. You've got some encounters that you wanted to share. You reached out to me after the gentleman shared his Dogman encounter and his encounter with the ODNR. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and that way you can share your encounters with us.
Sounds good. And if you have any questions or anything, pop in.
Yeah. I usually don't cut people off, only if I find a question relevant to the encounter that I kind of, so the floor is yours, my friend.
Sounds good. Well, this all started about 3 years ago for me. I went to this campground here in Ohio that a buddy of mine has been staying. He has a cabin down there. It's the campground has rules. They have to have, you can build around your spot, but you have to have a RV there, and it has to be accessible to the tongue where you can hook up to it if you need to. And what happened was I went down there to help him winterize. They shut the water off. He still stays there, but he hauls water in and stuff. So we were winterizing the place, and we heard the grassman, the Ohio grassman howl, that famous, from the BFRO, that famous howl.
Right.
And we were intrigued by that. So we started putting out a camcorder and recording. Okay. And in the meantime, we had walked around the park one night. It was in the middle of winter. There was hardly anybody there, just a handful of people that stayed there during the winter. And there's 8 miles of roads in this thing. So we're walking around just to see what we can see after we'd heard them howls. And we kept seeing movement between the trees. And we thought, we're being flanked by grassmen. This is crazy. And to make a long story short, we ended up getting scared back into the cabin. Some other things happened that I really don't want to go into at the moment.
Yeah, no problem.
And anyway, it scared us back to the cabin. So that's when we started putting the camcorder out. Well, he had put it out into the window and captured some pretty strange stuff. So one night he decided he was going to put it on the deck and pointed over to this other lot, but it was in the direction we had heard the howls, thinking we're going to get the grassman on tape, for prosperity, whatever. Well, lo and behold, in the middle of the night, it was, matter of fact, about 3:30 in the morning, according to the timer on the tape, we see the shadow appeared on the RV adjacent to it, the next lot over. And we see ears and a snout. It opens its mouth, and you can see the shadow of its teeth. Then it walks over to the corner. The camera was sitting on he's got a 2-tiered deck. It was sitting on the lower tier, pointing toward the other RV, but it was also captured in the corner of his cabin with the first step right there going up to the door. Well, all of a sudden the shadow moves over to that corner, and we see the shadow of a tail, the shadow of dog hawks, the digigrade feet. And then it looks around at the camera. It looked one way and then swung its head, looked at the camera, and then ducked back, and then walked back around, threw something at the cabin, and left. So we're watching this tape going, what the hell? We're backing it up, we're watching it, backing it up and watching it. So now we go on this quest. We got to figure out what this is and learn about it, So I do the armchair research. He's down there with the tapes running, about every night. Then we would sit and review the tapes. And once in a while, when we were sitting there at night, you would hear the big thump where they would actually jump on the roof. And that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and when you got to go out and get firewood out the door because you hear it take 3 or 4 steps toward the door and it stops and you don't hear it hit the ground. And that's one of the intriguing things about that video we got was when that thing walks over the cabin to the corner and looks around, it's walking on gravel and you don't hear anything except the wind.
Right.
And you hear him lean against the siding. You hear a little pop of the siding right before he looks around. And we were, one night we were sitting there, like I said, I'll probably jump around on this because there's been so many different things happen down there.
Now, at that point, when you were that encounter there, were there a lot of campers? I mean, it was you guys were winterizing his cabin.
No, it was winter time. There was maybe 5 people in the whole park.
Okay.
And we think we might have dragged him in. I backtrack just a hair here. We went down. This all happened in 2016 in January, right after the first of the year. It was the first week of January. It was like 9 below zero down there. We're very fortunate that the camera would even run.
Yeah. But
what had happened before that was we had a recording that we had gotten from a friend of a Sasquatch, supposedly a Sasquatch, unreal vocalization. It wasn't the howl or nothing. This was more sounded like something from Jurassic Park.
Okay.
I got the bright idea that we should broadcast that sound across the park through this big bass guitar amp he had. And when we did that, we did it twice, and then we went out and walked around, and we actually saw a police car come in the park and down to this house where this cabin where a guy that stays there all year was at. We'd seen him out with a flashlight after we had done that call blast. Then we did it again, saw him out there again. Well, my buddy, being a director there at the campgrounds, went down the next day when he saw a ranger come in with an unmarked and also an unmarked SUV. Come to find out, that guy's dog had his boxer got taken off its chain that night, and all he saw was a black mass going into the woods.
Right.
So we thought, well, okay, grassmen do that. But then we got, it was like a day or two later, we got that video. So now we're freaking out, wondering what's down there. And we started actually going up into the woods on the golf carts is what you use to get around down there most of the time. And you can drive through it, but to get up into the woods, we had to take the golf cart.
Okay.
And we would go up there, and the first few times we went up, we would hear sticks breaking. We would see the shadows between the trees. You could see, the gap get smaller where they were looking around at us. And, it was like they were keeping their distance, and we pretty sure that it was the Dogman because of the way they move so fast. I mean, you would just see a blip, just a blur going through the trees. And at one point up there, when we were sitting, there was a clearing before you get clear up in the woods. We would go through 2 clearings, and then we would get to a patch of woods that we would have to navigate through. It was supposedly owned by the electric company. But, 2 years into this, the signs went up that said, "Stay out or you will be fined $5,000 in jail time," and they put up trail cams. So we knew there was something else going on there.
Yeah, that's a definite red flag.
Yeah, for sure. And so we wouldn't go as far up at that point, but one of the nights we were up there, I actually had the mind speak. So I realized that Dogman can do the mind speak. It doesn't sound like it's like the grassmen do, because what I got was an image of a Dogman right in front of me crossing the path, and it was pitch black. Really couldn't see anything other than the light coming between the gaps of the trees. And I didn't really realize what had happened until later on. I started, heard about the mind speak and researched that a little bit and thought, well, that must be a form of it.
Right.
Which kind of, I don't know, it unnerved me a lot that they could do that, And so when this went on, I mean, we would go up in the woods in the middle of the night, and like I was telling you earlier, Jeff, my buddy was a ex-Army Ranger, and he'd been stabbed, blown up, shot, bayoneted, just has to have an adrenaline rush before we'd go up in the woods. So he would make us a nice meal, and then we would watch these werewolf movies and these old, killer Sasquatch movies. And then after midnight, we would jump on the golf cart and go up in the woods. Now, me, I don't have to have that adrenaline.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was dribbling pee the whole time.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean,
especially when you hear the growls and the sticks breaking, and you can't see them.
Right.
Or a rock comes flying over and hits you. We was there one point. We went down into those woods I was talking about. An old car down in there, and remnants of almost looked like an old fort or something. It's pretty cool, actually, down there. But we had walked to there's that little clearing there, and we went down to the furthest point of it, was looking around and listening. Walked back up to the golf cart, and then we heard a noise. Can't even really remember what the noise was. We just heard a scuffle or something. And we walked back down there, and there was a slash across the tree where we was just standing. So
how wide was the slash? Was it like a claw mark, or just like a singular?
It was 4 claw marks.
Okay.
And the remnants of a fifth that wasn't as prominent as the other ones.
Okay.
Were about 2 inches apart. And they weren't straight down the tree, they weren't vertical, they were more at a diagonal. Like it just went by and kept going. And they had done the same thing on his lot to one of his trees. The almost identical scenario. He was out there, went in the house, came back out, and there was a slash across his tree. And like I was telling you before, they actually took a frontal bite out of his tree. I mean, you can tell it's a frontal bite, and it goes clear into the meat of the tree, but you can distinctly see the 4 canines, and they actually have traces of blood around them. And the tree's long, we end up having to take it out because after it did that, the woodpeckers moved in and killed the tree.
Right.
And it was about 9 feet up. But there was also a little ledge, like a wall, a buildup of dirt where they leveled it off and put a retaining wall because he's on a hillside. So they leveled it off there to make a fire pit and a place to sit. And so he might have been standing on the fire pit. And if he was, that would have put it about 6.5, 7 foot up where the bite was. But from the ground, it was 9 feet. We measured it and just, completely wigged us out.
Right.
And like I said, we had so many encounters with them, throwing stuff at the cabin, jumping on the roof. One night, we were getting ready to go up in the woods, and it started raining, so we thought, we'll just go out on the deck, because we'd spent a lot of nights sitting on his upper deck watching them run up and down the road. You'd see their silhouettes, and you'd hear that little patter of their claws hitting the ground. And you'd see the blur of a silhouette go by. And they would actually even come under the deck while we were out on it. And how we knew was you look down through the crack of the boards and the light would be gone. It'd be black, and then all of a sudden the light would appear again. And that was always, that got me probably as much as anything, knowing he was right there. They were that brazen.
Yeah.
But they weren't near as brazen as they were with that encounter that I sent you. That one was probably the scariest I'd ever been, which we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
Well, it was one night we were sitting in there, like I said, it started to rain, and he said, "Do you hear that?" I said, "Hear what?" He said, "I keep hearing something outside." So he goes out the door, and he's gone for maybe 10 seconds. He comes back in and says, "Come on, man." I said, "What?" He goes, "There was one standing down here looking up through the cracks into the cabin, trying to see us or something, because it was looking up. It was underneath the top tier deck, which is way high up off the ground, and then it goes, as it goes up the hill, the deck gets closer to the ground. And there's the second part of the deck is maybe 3 feet to 5 feet, and it has lattice around it. But he was underneath the upper part of the deck, looking through the cracks up at the sunroom door where the double doors are going into the cabin. And we got to looking around, and there was blood on the ground where he was standing. It was it looked like he had stepped up on this board and was maybe on his tiptoes or something like that, whatever. But he was, stretching to look in, and we found that blood. So we started following the blood trail, and it went up around the cabin into a couple of the other lots. And again, this was winter. No one was around him, maybe 4 or 5 people in the park again. Well, we get up there and we found an even bigger spotch of blood on this railroad tie that they had used for landscaping on one of the lots. And he says, "He's close." And it dawned on me that we were looking for an injured apex predator. And I mentioned that to him, and he said, "Yeah, we better go." So we go back down around to the cabin. I thought, well, let's still walk up the road here and see if we see anything. So we start up the road, and we see these red eyes coming down the road toward us.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that was the end of that. We were back in the cabin, and that kept getting me in trouble, because once this shit would happen, I'm not leaving the cabin until daylight.
Right.
There's no way. I'm not going back out there. There's a couple times where I did leave when it was dark, and one of those times, walked down the steps, made the corner to get to my truck, which was parked beside the lower deck, where the opening was to get under the deck, surrounded by lattice work. I see this tail come up right on the driver's side of my truck. I'm pulled in, so I'm coming around and looking at the passenger side. Well, this big tail comes up, and I hear this thump against my truck. And my buddy was behind me still on the steps, so he didn't get to see the tail, but he heard the thump. So again, I'm back in the house waiting on daylight. I'm not leaving now,
Yeah.
I'm not going nowhere near the truck at this point. And it scared the daylights out of me. It really did. I like I said, I don't know how many times where I was just around the verge of adrenaline pee, because I'm not an adrenaline junkie by any means. My whole reason for doing this was I could go on the internet and search them and not see much of anything about these things. So I wanted to know what they were, where they came from, what they were doing, why they were around his cabin like that, harassing him. I mean, it's funny because he would come to me and say, "Man, I got to get out of there. I'm going home." Because he had a home and a wife, but they live with his family. Her family surrounded him, and he doesn't really get along with them too well. And being a vet, he's disabled in a lot of ways, so it doesn't bother him to be away from his wife for months at a time. And she would always come down on the weekends, and then he'd go home on a weekend once in a while. But he kept telling me, "I got to get out of here, man. I don't know what these things want." But he would never leave. It was almost like a curse for him to stay there. And we've often thought, what brought him in. It's almost like it's a frequency or something that brought him in, because right when this happened, he had bought some electronic drums. We were in a band together, and he bought some electronic drums to mess around with, and he had them set up down there, and he would play them at all hours of the night and the day, sometimes pretty loud during the day. And we don't know if that's what brought them in, because we know it wasn't food, because when the one came down and looked around the corner of the cabin, there had been a garbage bag with food in it sitting out there for a week that was untouched. None of the other critters came and touched it either. That's what was weird. It's like they were non-existent when this thing came in. And for quite a while after that, we didn't see any squirrels or raccoons or anything for about, I don't know, probably 16, 18 months before we finally saw a coon, around there. And I don't know if they eat those sort of animals. I'm assuming they do. I'm assuming they eat whatever they get their hands on. And if they run out of that, are people next? Or will they move on, But the night, this went on, like I said, for 3 years. I'd get down there and there was multiple experiences where one morning I went to leave. It was around 10 in the morning, nice, beautiful, sunny day. We're out in the driveway talking. I look over the hill and there's a black Dogman staring up the hill at us.
Wow.
And it ducked back around behind this camper.
Could you get like an estimated height of it, like using the camper as like a reference point?
He was, I want to say, at least 7 foot tall.
Okay.
And with the ears sticking up, I don't know how tall that would made him, so I really could tell how long the ears were, but they were very tall, and they were sitting kind of on the top of his head, as opposed to the side.
Right. Yeah.
And like the Batman cowl,
Yeah.
sort of like that, only way bigger. And it was, just had his head and his part of his torso around there looking at us. And when I turned around and looked and saw him, that's when he ducked back in. And that was actually, I didn't feel any fear that time. It was kind of cool, seeing him. Now that we knew what we were dealing with, it was kind of cool to see him looking at us. I don't know if that's good or bad, but the whole time all this stuff's going on, they've had many, many opportunities to kill one of us if they wanted to, and they haven't. Now, he's confronted them actually face to face, had them drop out of trees right in front of his golf cart. Well, because we have to go up on the hill to get signal to get cell service. So he'd go up there, check his messages, make whatever calls he had to make. One day he went up there and one dropped out of a tree.
Jesus.
And went into attack mode, and he actually got pictures of it. He's sitting there with his flip phone snapping pictures. And this thing, there was a loud crack behind the golf cart. It looked up and jumped and was gone. I mean, it just cleared the cart and everything was gone. This was a black and silver one with amber eyes, and now this is daylight when this happened, and his eyes are glowing in the daylight. I have the pictures, actually. And it actually looks like it has a bullet hole in its shoulder. There's a red pock in his shoulder about the size of a bullet hole. I mean, we would hear gunshots down there all the time.
Right.
All times of day and night, you'd hear gunshots. I think people down there's a lot of people down there that know what's going on, but they just, who you going to call,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can't. The authorities laugh at you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're going to just call ODNR and say, hey, we got this out here, and they probably won't even come out to investigate,
Right. They don't, whether they know it or not. If they do know it, they're not going to come out and investigate.
Right.
If they don't know it, they're thinking you're full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, what it amounts to. We'd actually brought another friend of mine in on it. He is the one who got me, they helped me convince me that there was really grass men out there. He had saw one when he was younger. And I'd known this guy for a while. We were in a band together. He was another drummer. And he told me about seeing this one when he was younger. And he said, it was so long ago, I want to see one again just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating or remembering things wrong. And I showed him pictures of the Dogman that we'd captured in the video, and he's really intrigued by it. So he said, I'll come down. So he come down there and we went up on the hill where they have a water tank up on this one hill. And we're up there, he brought his night scope. He's ex-military also. He's got all kinds of cool gadgets. So he's got a night scope, and he's looking around. And he was up on top of the tank and was looking around. And meanwhile, rocks are coming at us. I even kept one of the rocks that landed between my buddy and me's foot. I mean, we actually felt it hit. And again, we're right at the edge of the woods, but we didn't hear the rock hit any leaves when it came in. And he's up there with the night scope, not seeing a thing. So that was really bizarre, because anything within probably 30, 40 feet, he's going to see. He didn't see nothing.
Wow.
And it's, we're hearing the rocks hit the tank. Finally, my buddy up on the tank, he says, okay, I've had enough. I'm coming down. A couple of rocks landed up beside him. Yeah, and we went up in the woods, and, nothing really, just hearing sticks break, and that's about it. Didn't see any silhouettes or anything. But, you can't really, I don't like to just think every stick break is a Dogman or a Sasquatch,
Yeah, you'd be looking over your shoulder every 2 seconds, It's...
Yeah, I do that enough when I do go out at night and fish, which I go out here to this lake that's close by. I don't go into the old strip pits anymore.
Right.
No, because I figure I can hear them coming. I'm either going to see them coming down the road or hear them coming across the water. So that gives me enough time to get to my truck.
Yeah, always have a plan out.
Always. But that leads us up into where, right before we had the encounter where they besieged his cabin when we were in it, my other half, she went down with me one night. I say my other half because we're been together 20 years but haven't tied the knot. Shame on us.
Right.
Well, government doesn't make it easy for married folks, let's face it.
Yeah, that's true.
With raising children, especially,
It's always better if you're getting along. Why ruin it with some paperwork?
Exactly. This way we're together because we want to be.
Right.
Either one can leave anytime we want. So she gets down there with me, and my buddy, his wife's down there, and I had bought a night scope. I used one right before that, about 3 days before that, and I wanted to try it out. So I come down, and we're looking around, and it was right around midnight or so. It was cold. It was this last winter, fall. Fall. I guess it was fall. I want to say no, it wasn't this last. It was the winter before last. I'm sorry. The pandemic hadn't hit yet.
Right.
When it happened. So we're looking around. Him and I are. I'm getting cold, and all of a sudden we noticed across. There's his cabin, and there's a lot beside it, and then a road that comes down beside that lot, and then there's the road that comes through the front of his place, so it makes a corner right there, an intersection. Well, across that road, we see this big ass Dogman laying there, just watching us, and no reflection of the eyes either. That's what was weird. But we had the lights off, so there wasn't no light really to reflect. But it didn't stir from the infrared at all, which I thought was kind of weird. I thought it would, freak it out. It would get up and leave. But no, it kept laying there.
Yeah, you'd think there would be some sort of shine, something.
Yeah, and at first I thought that can't be a Dogman. It can't be, because I don't see any eye shine or nothing. It's watching us, or is it watching us? We determined that it was, and so, this went on for about a half hour. It didn't really feel any terror or anything like that. So we go in and tell the girls, hey, come out here and check this out. So they go out, and I said, well, I'm going to stand here and get warm for a few minutes. I'm cold. I'm a sissy when it comes to cold weather. So I'm in there staying warm. Well, my other half comes back in. She says, hey, come out here for a minute. I said, what? Oh, I'll come out in a minute. I said, I want to get warm. She said, no, come out here. I want you to see something. She said, you don't have to go outside. I said, what do you mean? She said, just come over to the sunroom door. So we walk back in there, and we go over to the door, and there's a window beside the door. So she's looking out the window. She goes, look down there. And where the one road that came down beside his lot, the other lot there, the vacant one, goes down to the hill. And there's a street light down there and an intersection, the main road going into the campgrounds down there. Well, there's these we see these figures running back and forth across the road, and then you would see these flash of color. It was amber, red, and blue. You just see it real quick. And she says, there's like kids running back and forth down there. What is going on? And then she says, what's them flashing lights? I said, well, honey, that's their eyes. And she says, what makes them flash? And I looked at her, started batting my eyelashes and looking around, and that's when she punched me on the shoulder. It hit her, dawned on her, and I was making fun of her. but it was comical. It really was. I mean, these things were down there running back and forth across the road. Don't know what they were doing. Putting two and two together, my theory was the big one was an adult, obviously, and that those were little ones down there playing. And it was watching us to see what we were doing. Because there wasn't hardly anybody else in the park. Again, it was wintertime.
Right.
And that's the only thing we could come up with, because that was bizarre. But
Yeah.
there was never any fear at all. None.
Well, like me and you were talking earlier, and it's, you're observing them, and they're almost just as curious as you are to observe you guys. What are these guys doing? No one's out here. Why are these guys out here? And so it's
it's a bizarre situation, because you always hear about how they stay at the edge of the light. They don't come out into the light, but at this place they do. And they come out the daytime, the nighttime. They don't have any set schedules. Just whenever they're done doing whatever they do, they'll come into the park. The wintertime, they come in more often. Like now, this time of year, they tend to come in the wee hours only. You don't really see them in the daytime. Because, I've seen them laying on wood piles down there when there was people everywhere in the middle of the day, be walking along. One instance, I had to park my truck down at the gate. I didn't have a gate key. He had to get it back for some, I can't remember whatever reason. So I had to walk up to get the gate key to come back down and let myself in the gate, which it was probably 3/4 mile or more up to his cabin from the gate. So I'm walking up the main road, and I look back this ravine, and on this wood pile, I see this long, dark figure, and I seen the ears sticking up, and I thought, nah, no way. And it was back there, at least 100 yards or better. And I'm thinking, that must be a shadow of a tarp or something. And it didn't move, and I sat there and stared at it for probably 45 seconds to a minute, and determined that I was probably seeing a shadow. So I go up, we hang out for a few minutes, I get the gate key to come back down and retrieve my truck. When I walked back down, I looked up in that ravine, and it was gone. And there was no wind or anything like that. Any kind of tarp that was there had been through hell. If it's there, that's where it's staying.
right.
Nobody physically pulls it off. And there was people everywhere, golf carts going up and down the road. It was really bizarre, another bizarre situation. But coming into the scariest encounter I've had with them, this was this last winter. And I went down there. We were having a heated discussion about what we was going to do with all this evidence. We were supposed to be partners, and that was kind of drifting away. And since we was using his equipment, he was kind of had control of everything. And he had started talking to somebody else about it, and was talking about, selling them evidence and whatever. And we were having a pretty heated debate about it. It was just borderline shouting match in his cabin, and I was getting pissed. So I remember looking at the clock, and it was 12:30. I thought, you know what, I'm out of here. I've had enough of this. We're getting nowhere. So I get up and start to leave, and I get close to the door going out with the cabin, and he had this little monitor sitting there where he had a camera pointing at the driveway out there, and it's on this little monitor. So as I'm get right beside that monitor, I hear the Dogman's half growl, half bark coming through the microphone. So I stopped. And then he came over, and we just stood there listening. And then we start hearing creak, something's coming up the steps outside the door. Then ever so slightly, the doorknob rattles. And they'd never done that before.
Yeah, they're learning.
I mean, they've gotten on the deck and actually opened the sliding door one time, scared the both of us. And it scared me because he looked at me and said, "You ought to be laying in bed when that happens." I said, "It wouldn't, because I'd have a lock on it." Which, we didn't have it locked. He did have a lock, but I would have had, the hillbilly board between the wall and the door where you can't open it.
Right.
And, but this one, it jiggled the doorknob ever so slightly. And then just right after that, the floor raised up underneath us. Just the whole floor. You just felt it raise up. It's like, holy shit, they're underneath here. So now we're getting a little bit concerned. He looks at me, he goes, "They've never done this before. They'll jump on the roof, but they've never done this." So he says, "Why don't you go in the kitchen and pull the towel back and look and see if you see anything out back?" He said, "I'm going into the sunroom and see if I can see anything." And as we were talking about that, we hear a noise outside. So I said, "Yeah, you're definitely going that direction. I'm going to the kitchen." And so I go in and kind of ease the towel back. I don't see anything. I'm looking around, a couple spots out there, don't see anything, because that's the kitchen is the camper part of the cabin, and you can only look out one window, which is above the sink. If you look out the other ones, all you see is a tarp, because that's where he's got it tarped back there to keep the wind off of it, and got the exposed water lines back there. Of course, they were drained at this point, but the tarp's still up there nonetheless. So
right.
I looked out the other window and I didn't see anything. So I come back into the living room, and here he comes, whiter than normal and sweating. He goes, "I fucked up." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I got down on my knees and I pulled the blind up." He said, and there was two of them standing out there. They didn't look at him. They just stepped backwards into the shadows, because there is an RV setting there also, but they were both out in front of that RV, one on one side and one on this side, and they just stepped backwards into the shadow. So at that point, he grabs his 45, says, "I'm going to the sunroom. You watch this door." So I'd always taken my 357 Magnum with me. So I didn't want to mess around with these things, I didn't want. I knew they were capable of some pretty massive destruction, and I wanted to be able to defend myself some way or another, because you're not supposed to have, firearms in there at all. But we did have clearance from the maintenance guy, because we were the only ones that had the guts to go up in the woods and try to see what was going on. The maintenance guy knew they were there. He had seen one time. That was enough for him. So he was glad that somebody was actually checking, had the guts to check it out. So we had a little bit of clearance there. So anyway, I'm sitting at one end and he's at the other. And, we're about 3 hours this goes on, 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. We're hearing them outside, but they're not messing with the doors or anything. Now the floor would raise up again. It probably did it a total of 4 times the whole time I was there. The first one, and then probably 3 more times after that. The floor would raise up. It's almost like he was under there with his back up against it, and he was like just pushing up on it, That's what, because there's not a lot of room under there. A person can climb under there on their hands and knees pretty easy, so they could too. Finally, we got to the point where I had to get home. I have grandkids, one little one to get on the bus, and then the older grandchild, and then my daughter had to get on the bus, and my other half had to get to work. So I decided, it was just probably about, I want to say 4:30 in the morning. The fear just ended up turning to fear, or the fear turned to just downright pissed off.
Right.
Like Jody Wells says, when you think you're down and out, you got to get plumb mad dog mean.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Josie Wells. Yeah, that movie. So that's kind of what happened. So he covers me. I go over to the window. He's behind me with a gun just in case. We opened the curtain real quick. Nothing's out there. So we threw open the window. Both of us just yelled. And I think when I sent you, the encounter in writing, I said, "Come in here, you sons of bitches. Get some of this," or something like that. It really wasn't that. It was more like, "All right, you motherfuckers, we're done with you." I was trying to clean it up a little bit,
Right.
But that's more or less the language. And we never heard anything after that. So we sat at that window listening and watching the monitor, going into the sunroom, watching and listening. No more, nothing. It was just silent.
Now, was the one that was underneath that was moving the floor? That was, because I thought you said a couple of times you could feel the floor move as well.
Yeah, it was like it was raising up underneath there, raising up the floor, like it was on its. The only thing we could figure it is it was on, on all fours, obviously, to get under there.
Right.
But it was like it had its back against the floor joist as it was pushing up.
Okay.
And it seemed to follow wherever we was at. It was like it heard us walking, and that's where it would do it, wherever we were standing, while I was still standing. And as a matter of fact, when I sat on the couch, it was, right under my feet at the couch. It felt like it anyway. I mean, I can't swear to that, but that's what it felt like. And, to raise that floor would take some pretty good power. I'm not saying it, took it up a foot or nothing like that. If you're standing on a floor and it moves upwards an inch, you're going to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I really couldn't tell you how far up the floor came, but it raised it enough to where you definitely felt it. And then, like I said, we, had enough, yelled at him, didn't hear anything. We sat there for another half hour, and it got daylight. And I said, dude, I've got to go get home. Will you cover me? So he comes out with me with his pistol. I got mine. I get in my car, and I'm back down the drive. Or I was in my truck, actually. So I back down the drive, and I'm watching him as he's going around to where the entrance to get underneath the cabin was. He gets around there, and he just stops. I'm thinking, oh, shit, what? He looks at me, looks back at the door, looks at me, and he goes, oh, you son of a bitch. I said, what? He comes walking down. He goes, they put everything that I had piled against that door back. He said, it's not in the same place, but they had the wherewithal to shut that door and put the objects back against it. And that's the only way to get under the cabin was through that little door. So they moved the stuff, opened the door, went under the cabin, scared the living daylights out of us, and then went back out, shut the door, and put the stuff back against it. What the hell does that? There's no other animal I could think of in the animal kingdom that would do that. First of all, be smart enough to go under there. And second of all, to put everything back.
Right.
The door was shut with everything. He had it was just a couple pieces of firewood and I can't remember what else he had there, a bucket with parts in it or something like that, just to keep that door shut. And they moved that stuff, opened the door, went under there, messed with us, came back out, shut the door, and put the stuff back against it. And that to this day, that still bewilders me.
Well, it's intelligence right there,
That's high intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've often, when people have looked at me and said, well, I've hunted the woods all my life. I've never seen nothing like a Sasquatch or Dogman. You're full of shit. How come we're not seeing them? I said, well, let's say they do have human in them. Which I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know. I know biology says it's impossible, but it seems to me like they have animal instincts and human intelligence, which is very, very lethal. I mean, they're going to know you're in the woods before you know you're in the woods, so to speak. As soon as you step out of your vehicle and start toward the woods, they're going to know it through hearing, sight, and reasoning. And that to me probably scares me the most out of everything. When I think about them, those times when I'm by myself and it starts going through my head, that always comes up in my head. Like, you're talking about something that's beyond an apex predator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And both the grassmen and the dogmen,
yeah.
These things. And like we talked about, we don't know how much of their brain they can use.
Oh, I agree. I mean, yeah, and we're going back to the apex predator thing. It's the thing that separates them from other apex predators is that, you hear these accounts where either one of them has killed for fun or just to do it, and then with the Dogman, enjoying terrorizing people. Like they genuinely enjoy terrorizing people.
They get a charge out of it. They sure do.
Yeah, and that puts them, at the top of the ladder with like a step ladder on top of that, they just...
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're saying.
Like a shark is an apex predator because they, but then you've got the killer whale, the orca, and, they kind of mess with the shark, like they flip them upside down and, they torment them. And the Dogman does the same. They genuinely love to just scare people in general.
Yeah, whether they're going to be, if they're going to tear you apart or whatever, it seems like they get more of a charge out of scaring you than they do killing you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think they realize if they kill you, then you're not going to be fun anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. It reminds me of the story where the woman was camping with her group of friends, and she went to go use the bathroom, and one came out after her, and she took off running and tripped and fell, and it actually came up and sniffed her and licked her and left.
Yeah.
And what better way to be horrified than to have that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Or like when they peer through a window and kind of just give that sideways smile at you. It's just...
Some of them big ass teeth.
Yeah, there's no reason for that other than just to watch you soil yourself practically,
Right. And they're smart enough to figure that out, that they can do that.
Yep.
That's what's really genuinely scary about them, is the amount of reasoning they can use.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's way beyond what I'm sure cats are too. But these things, I think a lot of what they do is not instinct driven as much as it is learned behavior and being able to retain that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, if one thing does, we don't know exactly what they are. The theories are, out there, but if them actually terrorizing and getting a kick out of it, that's almost a human characteristic or human behavior, because individuals, it's a cruel thing to do. So
it is, exactly.
That possibly could be, a pointer of, hey, there is some humanistic or human DNA. We don't know. It's a theory. But, that to me points to possible, human DNA.
Yep, definitely. Because, we all as kids, when we got a little older, we got a charge out of scaring the little ones.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we still get a charge out of that. I still do that at work with some, I work in the healthcare field, and I'm a maintenance man, and, know a lot of the aides and stuff. And there's a couple of them where if I see them coming up a hall, I'll wait around the corner just to scare them.
Right.
And they'll do the same, so we all get a charge out of that.
Yeah.
And these things seem to take it a step further, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The last time I went down to my buddy's cabin, it was a pretty quiet night. We were, just talking and stuff, and, kind of calmed down a little bit from the night where they had us surrounded. This was the very next time I went down there. It was like 2 weeks later. And, we were talking civil, and I just flat out told him, I said, I'm not going through that shit again. I'm out of here before midnight. Well, it came about midnight, so I had my car there, and it was, again, I parked up beside that entranceway where the driver's door was right there at that opening going under that deck. And I'd already went out there, took a load out to my car. I had some stuff down there I was getting. I put them in the car, and I shined the light under the deck. Didn't see anything, so okay, it's cool. So I go up, get the rest of my stuff. He's a talker, so about 20 minutes later, I'm finally going back out the door. And he was having some trouble with his foot, from something he got into overseas in the military. And it manifests itself every now and then, and it really messes with him. And it's the same foot that the Achilles tendon was the only thing holding it on through one of the times he was blown up. And, they reattached it, all that stuff. Anyway, he was having trouble with that foot. So he's got one boot on and nothing on his foot. So he comes outside, comes down on the step. I start to my car and I said, let me borrow your flashlight. So I put mine in the car. I said, I'm not going around that driver's side till I look under that deck. So I grabbed his light and I'm looking under the deck through the lattice, shining the light. And it just was really peculiar to me. I didn't realize what I was seeing at first. Then I realized what I was seeing was fur, and it was kind of like a hyena, speckled like a hyena.
Yeah.
I could see, that brown with the spots, and it was moving, and I seen a big patch of it, and I backed up and pointed under there. I couldn't say anything. I was trying to talk, and nothing was coming out. I mean, just scared the shit out of me. So I went back over and was able to talk. I said, he's under there. He's under there. He said, well, damn it. Let me get my boot and my gun. So he goes back up, gets his shoe on. I went back in too. I'm not staying out there. All my shit was in the car. I didn't have nothing to protect myself or even, just his little flashlight. So I go back in. He gets his boot on. We go back out. I said, I'm not walking over. He goes, I'm not afraid. I'll go over. So he walks over, shines the light under the deck, looks around at me, said, there's nothing under there. So I walk over, and you can see the ground where it was, something had been under there. Because the ground, unless something goes in there and flattens it out, you can see where the water comes through the deck boards and goes on to the dirt under there, and it's always roughed up. And this was really smooth, so we could tell something had been under there. But it was long gone by the time we got back out there. Thank God. So I hurried up and jumped in the car and said, get in the house, I'm leaving. That was it, I'm out of here. And that was the last encounter we'd had, that I had over there.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's terrifying. That area there, the way you describe it, and in our conversation, prior to, you sharing, it's amazing, and like you said, there's been other countless things, and, Ohio possibly have these vortex portals and stuff like that, and another Skinwalker Ranch area there.
That's exactly what it reminds me of. I mean, the amount of things I've seen down there, the amount of things he's seen down there, and like I said, we got a lot of this stuff on tape too.
Yeah.
And photographs, and have a lot of audio that's just unbelievable. I shared some of that with you. I don't really want to share it in public because I don't want to end up with the Men in Black at my door.
Right.
But there's been some crazy things going down there. There's a few things I didn't get a chance to tell you, but I will at some point, share them with you.
Yeah.
And see what you think about that. It's kind of puts I don't like to get into the UFO thing. I think, just dealing with the Dogman and then the Grassman's enough. I don't need to get into the other stuff. But when they start manifesting themselves in the same place, you don't have a choice.
Oh, no, you don't. You just...
No, you kind of got to look at all angles and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with, and Skinwalker Ranch is, a place where there's paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, orbs, this, and that, and there's got to be a connection to all of it. And, I don't know what it is.
I'm leaning toward the theory of it being energy and frequency.
Yeah, that's a good theory. I mean,
that's the only thing I can put it down to.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like, I don't know if them Dogmen were around his cabin, which I'm assuming they probably were before, but it seems like when he bought them electronic drums and started playing them a lot, that's when they started coming in.
Yeah.
So that would fall right into the energy and the frequency thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, the guy, I think, that actually, I didn't have another encounter, but we did see just last week when the guy from Wisconsin was down, I got us into there and we were sitting back behind the other cabin, watching, and we would see him out of the corner of our eyes. We would see the movement just real fast, and then hear the claws on the road behind us. Him and I were talking, and he kind of agreed with me. He's been dealing with them for over 10 years on his property. This guy has actually approached him. I mean, he was a corrections officer, and he's a dog trainer. So he's, able to curb his fear a little better than I am when it comes to that stuff. And he said he's been, on the verge of pissing his pants a couple times with him on his property. But him and I were talking, and we both kind of comparing notes, and that's, our theories kind of jived with each other about the frequency and the energy and the magnetics,
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense. And I think that's one of the things that they're looking at Skinwalker Ranch, to be honest.
Yeah, I get the feeling that that's what they're into.
Yeah.
Just from what I've heard and read.
Yeah. I mean, it does, it makes a lot of sense, and I don't know. I think there's more than just one connection, though. You know what I mean? That's just.
Oh, I agree. There's probably. I think if it ever all comes out, we're going to be amazed at the connections.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make us question reality. To be honest,
I already do.
I agree.
For 3 years now, my reality is flipped so much. I mean. My whole life changed, everything I do, everything. And there's not a day goes by that I don't think about these things,
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
One day.
I'm right there with you. Well,
it's messed up how they can get in our psyche like that.
Well, it's like, you either when you see one and have the encounter, you're either super, super into it and just want to dedicate the majority of your time and thoughts, or you completely close down and don't even care, and
I mean, I think the encounters have actually shortened people's lives.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had conversations with subscribers who, have had loved ones that have had, a encounter with them that actually, pushed them towards addiction and then eventually suicide.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah.
Because it changes everything.
It does. It changes your whole aspect of life, So.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've been told and believed in is washed out the window.
Yep. Well, we are all about time right now.
Yep.
I want to thank you for coming on and sharing everything with us. I appreciate, you sharing your encounters, but I appreciate you sharing your theories with us too and your views. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for listening and giving me a platform to actually do this. I don't know how much it means to me to be able to get this out there,
Yeah, well, the pleasure is mine, believe me.
Yeah, it's been bottled up for a long time, Can't really discuss it with a lot of people.
Yeah. And at least this way there's people that listen to the channel that are right there with you, that know what you're going through,
Yep, and I get that sense of family coming from you.
Yep. Is there anything that you'd like to say to your fellow subscribers before we end the upload?
Well, I guess just, the usual, be aware of your surroundings. Don't take every noise you hear as a dog man, but don't take every noise you hear as not a dog man. Just be aware and do the things you do. Don't be like I have and cut that stuff out of your life. I'm trying to get back into it, which I'm doing really good at, getting back out and fishing at night and stuff. I know it's hard, but I think when you have an encounter, you have to get past that somehow. And part of the ways is facing your fears, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
I think a lot
advice.
of, I think, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of what helped me was my dumbass buddy putting them werewolf movies on, and then us going up in the middle of the night looking for them, you know?
Yeah.
I think that helped. I really do, because it got me facing the fears, because when you're dribbling pee heading out the driveway, you know it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
And I really think that, you know, facing your fears and being not really aggressive, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by dogmen or one, let it know that, you know, you live here too. Whether or not they can understand you, I don't know. Sometimes I get the feeling they do.
Yeah.
Whether it's through feeling or actually understanding your language. But I think if you let them know, hey, I live here too, I'm not going to bother you, so don't bother me. I think that goes a long ways.
Yeah, some solid advice right there. I appreciate that. Well, do me a favor. Don't hang up. I'm going to end the upload. And thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. After all, it is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save someone else's life someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.